he built his New Mexico ranch, he said, to be this Manhattan Project for basically kind of hacking the genome. Like, so he wanted to connect NSA hackers
Yes.
to biology. That's why I said in the last segment that this biotech research thing actually tracks. Like, this is the kind of thing that he was into.
Welcome back, folks, and buckle up. We're diving headfirst into the cesspool that is the Jeffrey Epstein saga, specifically his infamous Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. You think you know corruption? You ain't seen nothing yet. The revelations from these files are shocking and sickening, but what's even more stomach-turning is the blatant cover-up by those who are supposed to protect us. We're going to dissect this like a frog in biology class, point out the absolute garbage arguments, and expose the truth behind the curtains. Get ready to have your mind blown and your blood boiled. Let's roll the tape.
Well, that was Ryan Grimm, friend of the show, discussing Epstein's Zorro Ranch. In fact, it was one of Jeffrey Epstein's properties, and this one happened to be located in the state of New Mexico. And while the federal government seems to have absolutely no interest in investigating some of the revelations we've learned from the newly released Epstein files, thankfully, lawmakers in New Mexico do want to launch an investigation into Zorro Ranch in particular, and I'll explain why in just a second. But before I do, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Hold on a minute, folks. Did you catch that? The federal government has absolutely no interest in investigating the newly released Epstein files. Let that sink in for a second. The federal government, the one with all the resources, the power, the mandate to protect its citizens, is just shrugging its shoulders like a teenager told to clean its room. It's like finding a smoking gun next to a dead body and the lead detective says, "Nah, I'm good. Looks like a lot of paperwork." This isn't just empathy. It's practically an admission of guilt. Why are they so eager to swipe this under the rug? What are they really afraid of finding at Zorro Ranch? Tell us. It tells you one thing. You know everything that you need to know about who's truly pulling the strings in Washington and who they're protecting. It's certainly not the innocent victims, that's for sure. Thank goodness some lawmakers still have a backbone, because if it weren't up to the swamp of DC, this whole charade affair, craziness, everything to do with Epstein would disappear faster than the tax return from an audit.
You know that old saying about they know where the bodies are buried? In this case, it might be literal, some haunting emails coming up for you guys. And how could this story lead to unraveling of the whole case? So we'll tell you about that here.
So Epstein owned this 8,000-acre ranch known as Zorro Ranch from 1993 until the day he died. And there are some pretty disturbing accounts of the goings-on at this ranch, although they're allegations and they should be investigated. Now, one of the Epstein survivors, Annie Farmer, has alleged that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein both assaulted her at this ranch when she was only 16 years old. Virginia Giuffre, along with another anonymous victim, reported similar stories. And then there's more. So the New Mexico Department of Justice wrote to the DOJ last week seeking unredacted access to an anonymous 2019 email that alleged 2 foreign girls were buried at Zorro Ranch. I read that email and it was creepy as hell, and I wondered, are we just gonna pretend like this doesn't exist? Is the federal government going to maybe at least pretend like they're gonna do an investigation? Nothing from the federal government, of course, but luckily on a state level, things are a little different here. So anonymous sources who spoke to the New York Times stated that Epstein repeatedly mentioned plans to inseminate women en masse at this ranch in order to spread his DNA. That could be totally made up. I have no idea. But right now, the New Mexico House of Representatives unanimously voted in favor of investigating this. Okay, they want to dig deeper into what's happening over at Zorro Ranch. Go ahead, Cenk.
Okay, wait. Inseminate women en masse to spread his DNA? This isn't just creepy, folks. This is full-blown supervillain stuff straight out of the Bond movies. And the idea that it could be totally made up is exactly what they want you to think. Why would anonymous sources bother fabricating something so specific and utterly depraved if there wasn't some horrifying truth to the twisted mind of Epstein. It's almost a relief, though, a small glimmer of hope that the New Mexico House of Representatives is unanimously voting to investigate this. Remember, folks, unanimously. That's a miracle in today's hyper-partisan political climate. It proves that when the federal swamp is too deep in the muck of it to enact, sometimes the local folks are the ones who actually care about justice. It's a stark contrast. Washington, D.C. doing everything to ignore it, and a state legislature saying, nope, we're going to dig into this a little bit more. It really makes you wonder what kind of skeletons are rattling in the closets of D.C. elite that they're so terrified and so afraid of this state-level investigation proceeding.
There's another possibility for why he wanted that, not to necessarily disseminate his DNA. And this is crazy, guys, but look, we're in an absolutely crazy story. We told you about the 16-year-old whose baby was taken from her, according to the allegations. If they're interested in babies, this is how you would make babies. So, I mean, all of this is deeply disturbing, and before this story broke, we wouldn't have believed any of this stuff, but it's in the emails.
So again, there has been so much smoke when it comes to Zorro Ranch that the House in New Mexico voted unanimously to investigate this, and the legislation that they passed would create a special subcommittee to investigate allegations of criminal activity and public corruption. And it was, by the way, sponsored by 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So this is very much a bipartisan effort, and I love to see that. This is where there shouldn't be any daylight between one party or the other, or between these 2 parties, because this is something we should all be interested in getting to the bottom of. And if there is any evidence of wrongdoing, at least we have a little more clarity about what happened at this ranch. Now, the property once known as Zorro Ranch is currently owned by Texas State Senator. His name is Don Huffines. And he has promised that he will cooperate with law enforcement as they investigate the property. So that's good news. I'm gonna skip his post, but you can read about it on X, where he said, I will cooperate, essentially. What I wanna know is, does Michael Tracy know about that email exchange? About how 2 foreign girls or 2 foreign bodies are buried at Zorro Ranch? I mean, it could be total BS, but how do you read that and think there's nothing there?
So, and a lot of times the government sees those emails and insanely does not investigate. And then Michael will then turn around and say, well, see, you didn't prove it. Yeah, but brother, that's because there's all this evidence and the government refuses to follow up on the evidence. That's part of the story, that's part of the problem here. Okay, so look, first of all, a lot of haunting stuff. It's 7,200 acres, so it's isolated in the kind of in the middle of the desert. Island isolated, you isolate the girls so no one can help them, no one can hear them.
What girls?
And I know. And then and also if something happens, it's easier to dispose of folks, right? So it's every part of this story is haunting. The unraveling, how could that come? Well, so look, our government's compromised, obviously. Our intelligence agencies knew about Epstein for decades, and instead of turning him into the FBI, and that's another Michael Tracy thing. That's how my fight with him started online on X, where he's like, what did you want the CIA to do? There's nothing they could do about it.
How about they disband since they're useless pricks and we don't need them? How about that? If you don't think the CIA could have done a damn thing when it comes to this case, then let's just get rid of them. What's the point of having CIA?
So in that case, like it's sophistry, right? No, what the CIA does, if there was a Russian gang, like pedophile ring in America, would they be like, oh, I guess there's nothing we can do about it? Oh, let them collect blackmail on American politicians and rape American girls. There's nothing we can do about it. No, you turn them into the FBI, and the FBI then arrests them. But the CIA in this case seem to be doing the opposite. The FBI finds these guys, and the CIA says, do not investigate them, right? And so that's according to Alex Acosta, who then became labor secretary for Trump, who gave the light sentence, and there's a lot of other evidence. But they could, so as much as our government, federal government is compromised, I don't think they bothered to buy the entire New Mexican legislature or the Rhode Island or Hawaiian legislature. It's too much, right? So there's no reason why the New Mexican legislators would be compromised. So they're going and going, oh yeah, oh, well, his house is in New Mexico. Let's go investigate that. And they're going la 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 la. And if they go in there and they find a whole bunch of things that are incriminating, it's going to be a huge problem. In fact, that leads me to a prediction. I believe that if this keeps going down the road, which it looks like it's going to, at some point the federal government will step in and go, no, you know what? Good point about the Zorro Ranch. We're not taking over the investigation because we're going to do it more thoroughly. Trust us. Don't let them in. Don't let the locals in. Okay?
I mean,
because our government is totally compromised.
but we also have to keep it real, because if this is nearly 8,000 acres, that's a lot. What are they gonna do? They're gonna dig up the whole property?
No, you could easily do. Look, I don't know how they do that detection, but there's definitely ways to do it. Yeah.
All right. I mean, look, I'm happy that they want to do this investigation. I'm not trying to pour cold water on it.
Yeah, no, and they could find things inside the house. I mean, look at how sloppy they've been. Because I think that inside the government there was an assumption that these guys are above the law. So they barely even bothered to try to hide things. I mean, all these emails are all over the files. Give me a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, the missing baby, and all these different things. And they're just sitting there in the files. They didn't burn them. They didn't delete them. I think they thought, we're above the law. Who's going to make us be accountable? No one. So who knows? Maybe they left some of the tapes in New Mexico.
All right, here's where we get to the heart of the matter. Show me a single prosecution. This is the mic drop moment, isn't it? For all the so-called contrarians out there like Michael Tracy, who love to play devil's advocate and pretend there's nothing to see, this question is a brick wall they can't climb over. If our government wasn't compromised, if they were actively pursuing and protecting these monsters, then where are the perp walks? Where are the indictments? Where are the convictions for the actual powerful people involved? It's crickets, folks. Absolute silence. Nothing. Their nothing to see here argument falls apart faster than a house of cards in a hurricane when you ask that one simple question. It's not that there's no evidence. It's that the evidence is being deliberately ignored, buried, or actively suppressed by the very institutions that claim to uphold justice. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy fact playing out right in front of our very eyes.
See, that would be amazing. In fact, I'm afraid I shouldn't have said it out loud, because if anyone's watching, the FBI and CIA are going to be like, rush to New Mexico. Make sure we clean that place up. Why did you protect them? Why are you still protecting them today? For any of the contrarians, and if you guys don't know, Michael Tracy's a contrarian saying, oh no, there's nothing to see here. Then guys, show me a single prosecution. Why hasn't the government prosecuted any of these monsters? Obviously, our government is in on it. That's why they protected them.
So there you have it, folks. The Epstein saga isn't just a tale of one sick individual. It's a gaping wound in the fabric of our justice system, exposing the rot at the highest levels. The fight for truth isn't over, and it's up to us to keep the pressure on. So tell me, if you are as fed up as I am with the federal government protecting the powerful instead of the innocent, then smash that like button, share this video with everyone you know, and hit subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the swamp. Let's make sure that they can't sweep this under the rug any longer. Your voice matters, so let's use it. And as always, stay vigilant, patriots, stay vigilant.